What up?
What's going on, bro, Chacho?
Oh, bro, Montana, let me tell you, we're doing the thing.
Yeah, are you in the thick of it right now?
I'm in the thick of it right now. So we had, the weekend at the Arnold, and then I was home for 5 days and then went away to Vegas for a mastermind. Um, and you came to the mastermind in DC. This one was way more, to be honest, it wasn't much of a mastermind. It was more just like a working session, like a
Okay.
really long working session. So Sunday night we did like a welcome dinner at 7. Didn't get back to the hotel until like 10. So realistically 1 a.m. my local clock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I woke up, went for a run, was there by 9 on Monday. We worked all the way through until 9. And then on Tuesday, woke up, did some cardio, and then was in there from 9 to 3 on
Dang.
Tuesday. So it was nonstop, and we were on our laptops the whole time. It was centered around AI, which I know a lot of people look at AI as, oh, if you use AI, you're lazy or whatever. But realistically speaking, the amount of stuff that AI can do now for you is just growing week to week, month to month. Even just before this call, I set up an automation with Claude that is going to every Friday scrape my Google, like a specific Google Drive that I upload meeting recordings to. And it's going to take those transcripts, pull out topics that are core to my audience of business owners, and give me 3 ideas per transcript of videos that I can make, put those in a Google document, and then all of my content brainstorming is done.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild. And I not to kind of cut you off with what you're saying, but I think one of the other misconceptions, especially with AI, is yes, you're producing more, but I also think it's a different type of work that you're taking on. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like learning the AI platform and system. So it's like, yes, you're gonna have this massive amount of production or maybe things off of your plate,
Hmm.
but equally it's gonna present,
Yeah.
more work, but just slightly different. And it's one of those things I feel like where it's here. Obviously, it's here to stay. There's pros and cons, or you can fear monger it and not want to use it. But at the same time, if you don't understand it, I feel like that's where you're going to start getting left in the dust because it's going to become such a common, even like for a search engine. I don't,
Oh,
I
yeah.
barely even use Google anymore. I'm using like ChatGPT or
Uh-huh.
getting into Claude now. So it's like any other tech boom, where people probably thought like the internet
Yeah.
was the same thing, and then it became just such a mainstream. So now it's like we have AI, but that's insane that you're able to do that. And from a creator aspect, I mean that's fantastic, right? It's
Uh,
like you just show up, look at what it pulls. Obviously, you can make some adjustments, but
yep.
now and it gets to know you so well in your content where the ideas are basically what you would have generated at some point anyway.
Yeah, the I look at it through two lenses. So I look at it as number one, can it make the work that I'm already doing a little bit easier to do? And when it comes to content generation, speaking mostly from a coaching perspective, for most coaches, creating content is something that pulls them away from the coaching. And it's something that they have a lot of friction to do. So it ends up just not getting done. So if I can create a system for people that makes it a little bit maybe less friction, and then then I can teach them to understand the power of what content can do. Like when
Mhm.
we think about the way that we create a community around our coaching or around our business or around our brand, we do that through content creation. I actually get more feedback from my existing clients about my content than I do from in terms of client acquisition.
Mhm.
So I look at my content as how can I build more loyal fans, right? Those
Mhm.
100 raving fans that you're
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
Um, I also look at it through the lens of, hey, I can create more. I can, number one, the hardest thing for me is like, oh, what do I do videos about? I literally talk on Zoom all day, every day
Mhm.
about stuff that is core to my audience. So why not just take the brainstorming off my plate? So the talk and so I mentioned the travel. So I was in Vegas until Wednesday last week. We leave for Phoenix on Friday because I'm giving my talk at Arizona State on Saturday. And my entire talk is around this framework of GPTs that I've created. And I'm taking people through the process of creating an AI writing assistant that knows you, your personal story, knows the way that you write, knows your brand, and knows who your ideal client is so that it can tailor its outputs specifically for you.
Mhm.
And so the goal there is to teach them how to take one piece of organically created content, like a Zoom call, like a webinar, and turn that one piece of content into 50 with this one tool.
Oh yeah, I mean that's awesome, and I think the other thing too is like kind of like you said, the friction point of it. They You'd have to pay so much money, like it's to get people or outsourcing, like it's insane. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking thousands of dollars even at this point,
Yep.
like per month, just to be putting out that amount of content, or even like a business consultant, right?
Yeah.
Like your GPT is essentially what we would have to pay a business
Oh,
consultant
yeah.
for to sit there, or what I and yourself have paid for when we go to masterminds or we're buying courses. Or now, you can get most of the free versions. You can do a lot too, but then even if you upgrade, like I think for ChatGPT, it's like $20 a month for the pro for me.
Mhm.
But it's like for $20 a month, I'm getting thousands of dollars, just for 20 bucks a month. So to me, that's a huge ROI. And the other thing that you kind of hit on that I like, and this is always something when I am struggling with content or friction with content, is just goes back to the Gary V, like document, don't create. Where with
Mm.
you, everything you're doing all day is content, but we don't have the luxury of having a camera guy
Yeah.
with us all day. And I'm sure you've sat there and you've either said something or you've done something and you're like, dude, like that should have been content. And
100%.
there is a difference when it's organic versus trying to like redo it
Yeah.
after the fact. So by having all those Zoom calls and everything you do on a daily basis, that's either recorded or that you're just creating now, that's doing all that work, essentially for you. And then
Mhm.
you can go in and obviously you always want to double check everything, but just what a crazy tool to have at our disposal right now.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting better and better. So the tool that I'm talking about that can, integrate with Google Drive and Google Calendar, it's a new feature in Claude called Claude Cowork. And this is what we spent the majority of our time doing. But Claude just, they put it out and then 3 weeks later they just put out this new feature called Dispatch that you can put on your phone and I can actually text Claude to run tasks on my computer when I'm not even at my computer.
That's wild. That's
It's
wild.
so the amount of stuff that number 1 I can do that I didn't have time to do before, the amount of stuff that I can pull off of my assistant's plate so that she can be doing more higher leverage tasks. It just expands and grows the amount of content that we can produce or the amount of service that we can provide to our clients. It's to the point now, dude, where we could like you can hook up well, I did this. I hooked up my Stripe account to Claude so it can read all my reports and all my transactions. So it's automatically going to scan for failed transactions and send a personalized email to all the clients who missed their payments.
Yeah, and then think about how much time you're saving,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that's the stuff, and we've talked about it like from a entrepreneur or coaching perspective, that that causes just so much friction. It's stuff that I hate doing. It's probably stuff that you hate
Oh,
doing
yeah.
because it's not why we're in the business. Obviously, we have to understand it and kind of you need to be in the trenches for a time to understand. But I am a firm believer, like once you put your time in to a certain extent, it's
Mhm.
like then you kind of have to move on or outsource to somebody else. You should always know like how your business works and operates. So if you need to get in there, you can. But at the same time, if you're spending, whatever it is, 10 extra hours per week, like that adds up over a course of a year. And it's like imagine all that time you could have back focusing on, like you said, the high leverage value content or projects that you want to be putting out there, and that's also what leads to fulfillment, I would
Mhm.
say, versus becoming bogged down or burnout by all of those little minute types of actions that you have to put in your business that just drain most people. Like that's not what we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that brings us beautifully into our topic that we want to chat on today, which is priorities. And this topic came to me because number one, I'm in a position right now where I have flexed on my priorities a little bit and I've said yes to too many things that honestly I probably should have said no to. And it's pulled me away from some of the core things that I need to do, like my taxes. But
Same.
yeah, not only that, what are some ways where we can kind of have it all? Because as business owners, you're a parent, we're both husbands. Our priorities in a lot of aspects aren't us, right? Some of my highest priority things on my list, it's not me, it's other people. And that doesn't mean that I have to subjugate myself or put myself second. In fact, I rank myself first in my priorities list. But I can still do my thing without it negatively impacting things underneath, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to start by like framing how I personally look at priorities, and maybe you can chime in on how you do as well. But one of the exercises that I do a few times a year is I actually go through and I rank my top 5 priorities in my life. And the rule that I use for priorities is in order for it to be a priority, nothing underneath it can take precedent. So I rank my priorities 1 through 5, with the rule being I can never sacrifice something above for something that's below.
Hmm.
So, like I said, I put myself first in my priorities list. The next is my wife. The next is my own training and nutrition. I just recently shifted my own family to fourth because they don't live in the same city as me. But when we were living in Ottawa, they were number 3. And then number 5 is my business. So that means that if Olivia needs something and it means I'm going to miss a workout, I have to miss the workout.
Yeah.
But if Olivia needs something and I know that it would negatively affect my mental health, I have to say no. And that's a tough one for people because they always want to make everyone around them happy. But I'm a big believer that if I'm not my whole self, I can't be myself for others. Um, but that also means that, you might find it funny, most people do, that I put my business 5th on my list. Well, of course it's 5th, because if my mom needs me to fly home because she's sick and I have meetings, those meetings are getting canceled. That also means that I don't miss training sessions for work. That's just my personal priorities list. Now,
Mhm.
you may rank work above your training, or you may rank your work above your family, and there's no judgment here. But that's how I look at my priorities list. And then that also filters through into what I say yes to and what I say no to. And I don't know about you, but whenever I say yes to something that undermines my priorities, I get a lot of anxiety about it. It's like an immediate cue that, hey, bub, you're off.
Yeah, no, I totally would agree. I think where I've struggled in the past is definitely taking on way more than I can chew, which it's definitely it's tough because there's a part of me that loves helping and serving others, and I would say internally, I always want my reputation to be known as like if I needed Joey, he'd be there in a heartbeat, right? But
Mhm.
I think what I've had to do is almost filter, like have some sort of filter of who is in that group and who is not in that
Oh,
group, which sounds like terrible because you don't necessarily want to like rank people, but at the same time, if I look back, there's been so many times where I've put myself out there and that's been above my where it probably shouldn't have been,
mhm.
and then at the same time I either feel like I'm being taken advantage of, or like you said, I get anxiety. And now I have all these other things on my list that probably should have been taken care of first that are compounding. And then I turn into basically a shit show. So
Yeah.
for me, especially when you bring a family into it, that's a game changer for sure.
Yep.
Um, but I've definitely had to get better at saying no and consciously thinking before responding. Like in the past, I would have just impulsively been like, yeah, I got you,
Mhm.
but now it's like if somebody asks me something, I have to pause, actually think a little bit deeper on it, or just be like, hey, let me get back to you. And sometimes it is no. Like
Mhm.
I felt bad. I was taking Layden, so I watch my son every Thursday when my wife's in the office, and I took him for a nice play day at this place, like right by the house. And one of my best friends from growing up called me, and he was in a pickle where he's had a space where it's kind of like one of his inventory shops, and he
Mhm.
had to get out of there. And it was like that day, unfortunate situation. I've always helped him. I've always been there for him. And I basically just told him, like, I have this obligation with my son. I knew it wasn't going to work out. It
Mhm.
sucked to have to tell him no because I wanted to be there. But the flip side is when you have a friend like that, they're super understanding,
Yeah.
so that's the difference where, like, if it was like you, or we always talk about it too, we've talked about on the podcast, like if something happened or you hit me up, hey, we can't do the podcast, or we're on a trip and you're like, bro, I got to get home, something's wrong with Liv or your mom, whatever,
Mhm.
like, bro, you do whatever you got to do. I'm not even gonna ask questions,
Yep.
and that. But the flip side is that there have been people, I don't know if it's the same with you, but it's almost like they then get some sort of resentment,
Mhm.
or they try to make you feel bad about it, or they hold it against you. And those are the types of people where now it's more like a red flag of, hey, like I got to figure out my boundaries here and kind of assess that relationship long term. And I know it sounds bad, and I hate saying those types of things, but especially when you're more like us in a service type industry, there's just such a gray area of,
Mhm.
the give and take. And when we have these other big priority topics, right, like those little things actually matter a ton, in
Yep.
my opinion.
Yep. For sure. And this is where I think expectations play a huge role. Like that friend who held resentment over you for prioritizing, whether it be your family or your partnership or whatever above his friendship or what he needed. There's going to be people that obviously in the moment he's going to be disappointed, right? It's like, fuck, like I needed Joey, he's not there for me. But that should quickly be refocused into, man, I'm really stoked Joey's being a father before he's doing this. Like that would be obviously, like if I needed you and you couldn't do it because you were with Leighton or you were with Jordan, my immediate thought would be like, fuck. And that's because my needs are this is something people don't realize. You are the center of your own universe. So it's okay that you feel disappointed in that moment. But my immediate shift would be, man, I'm so glad Joey's being a good dad right now. I'll
Right.
figure my own shit out. And if that person can't make that shift and there's an expectation that you drop whatever you're doing to be there for them, in my opinion, that is a, complete derelict of the friendship and what that should mean. And that person probably should be relegated to that other friend group.
Right.
Right. And that's a tough thing to say. It's a tough thing to do because in most cases we share history with these people. But as you grow, both in age and in responsibilities, you have to be more strategic with the people you surround yourself with. And, we've talked about this a couple times in the podcast. Like, I don't have many close friends for a reason. There's just no space in my life, and there's very few people that align with me, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Um, and then, as that relates to the priorities, like I have so many other things in my life that have priority over other things. Priorities to me is like, that's your permission slip to say no. And I think, as you said, being impulsive and saying yes to too many things, that is eventually going to carry over into, you know, detriments to your mental health or having your fitness fall off or whatever it might be. Like, I look at this as, okay, so if I put myself, my own mental health first, and it's 10 p.m. and I still have a couple of check-ins to do, and I know that I have to wake up at 4 a.m., I'm going to bed. I'm
Yeah.
sending a message to those clients and I'm saying, hey guys, you'll have your check-ins by 6 a.m. I'm going to bed. That's fine. I'll take that L.
Mhm.
Where we get into trouble is, well, I owe it to these clients. They're going to be disappointed. I'll get these check-ins done. You end up going to bed at midnight. You get 4 hours of sleep, and then you're shit for everybody else. To me, that is a disrespect to your priorities. That it has to be your permission slip to say no. And it's okay to flex. Like, I would be so hypocritical if I said I never flexed on my priorities. I would be, like, because it's not true. But it is my guiding light. It's my lighthouse that, if I need, they are there for a reason. I have ordered them in that way for a reason, and I have to abide by them if I want to be at my best. Where I tend to struggle is, like, especially with sleep, like, I'll sleep less and do more, but I can only do that for so long. And especially when it comes to my training, it's like, okay, I have to. I remember last year when I went to Summer Strong, I had to leave Charlotte at 7 a.m. So I was at the gym training legs at 5 a.m. because Friday was leg day. It's like, was that a productive session? Maybe not as good as it could have been, but I needed to do legs before I left because I owed it to myself. That was higher on the priorities list. So, like, I'm a get myself out of the way first kind of guy, even if it means sleeping less. That's the trade-off I'm willing to make.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only make so many credit, like, you can only take so many debits from that bank account before it starts to add up.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like the Arnold was a good example of that for me, where when I have like bigger trips or collabs, basically it's, yeah, we're firing at the hip. There's going to be not much sleep. You're somehow getting it done, but at some point you're going to get smashed by a wall in the face, and have to have that recharge. But as you were talking about this stuff, one of the things I was reflecting on, and it was actually something that was interesting. I saw this big guy on Instagram talking about how people, if they're having anxiety or depressed or super down, usually it's because they're thinking about themselves too much, and what they need to do is start either helping or serving others. Which I would agree to an extent,
Yeah.
right? Because I've been in situations like that, where maybe there's things going on in my personal life or work life, and I'm letting it just really bog me down mentally, starting to feel those thoughts, and then I would start to either help or serve others. But what started to happen, which was probably not the best type of relationship or coping mechanism, is then I was just taking on so many things and kind of running away from my
Mm-hmm.
problems. And I'm just saying this to people because if you find yourself in that position, that didn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
It basically just puts it on the back burner,
Yeah.
and you're distracting yourself by either helping others or not thinking about what's going on. And it's a temporary band-aid. And then you get to a point where you're now overwhelmed by how much you've taken on, still have not worked on yourself. And then now you have to turn down things or leave things, which is can be tough in itself.
Yep.
And then now you have to go back and work on yourself to fix that initial thing you were running away from. So it's one of those things where, I hear it and it's like, okay, to most people, they're probably like, oh, that makes total sense. But from living it and going through this multiple times, like, I had the realization that I started to use that as a coping mechanism to run away from the actual thing that I needed to fix,
Oh, yeah.
which, then finally you can kind of clean slate it, which is work in itself, start to rebuild and rework yourself, get yourself in a good space. But if you don't take that action to actually say no to things, you're constantly going to be back in the vicious cycle, and you're going to be like, how did I get here again? Well, it's because, you really needed to make those changes and stay to them, which comes down to, once we, or what we're talking about is those priorities, which is huge. And even just by having those priorities, I think is great because, like, to be honest, like, when you said that, it's like I know them in my head, but I don't actually have them written down. So I was like writing, 1 through 5 down as you were saying it. But that's a great little list that I can have with me on a post-it note anywhere I go, on my
Mhm.
phone, in my truck. Anytime something pops up, look at that. And that's going to take away more of the stress or anxiety of trying to make that decision, and I can be more logical and make sure that it fits that. And internally, I know in the moment, maybe it's going to be tough or whatever, but I know down the road I'm going to feel so much better about that decision versus not having anything to reflect on, or just be able to see and have a process to go about it in a more methodical way than just shooting from the hip or, once again, being impulsive.
Dude, and how many times do we fall into that same coping strategy when it comes to work? Like, I'm thinking you're talking about, like, you know, uh, taking on service of others to elevate your mood when you're in a depressed state. I'm like, I really don't want to fucking do my taxes. So I'm going to say yes to a seminar. I'm going to say yes to taking on more content. I'm going to say yes to this, yes to that. Cause those are fun for me and they fill me, like they just hit me with dopamine. Whereas my taxes make me want to murder myself,
Yeah.
or sorry, unalive myself.
Just for the clarification.
Just for the clarification. So like we do this all the time. It's a very common coping strategy. And I did it. Like when I was going through that really hard time in 2019, I poured myself into my business. Yeah, my business grew like crazy, but then I just ended up being a stressed out mess because I had so
Yeah.
much work to do and I hadn't worked on myself.
100%.
You're just kicking the can down the road. And I think, again, the other thing with the priorities list is so each one of those priorities can be segmented down into its own. So you take, myself. So if I'm going to put myself number one, what are the things that I need to prioritize on myself? Well, sleep, steps, nutrition, journaling or reading. These are all things that fall under that me category. And this is, again, if I'm going to put that category in there, I have a ton of work to do. I had a ton of work to do today. I knew that it was going to take X amount of time. Well, I woke up 30 minutes ahead of time so that I could read. Right. So I'm fitting in my things before I need to do other things so that it remains top on the priority list so that I can check that box. Um, for your wife. So my wife is number two. Well, how do I break that down? Well, quality time each day, date nights, things like that. So those segment down each one. And then if training and nutrition is number three, okay, I'm going to schedule my training sessions in my calendar and block them off. I'm going to make sure I have at least a 15-minute buffer between meetings so that I can get my meals in. Right. Okay, cool. That training and nutrition box is checked. Next is my own family. Okay, my own family. I'm going to call my mom 3 times a week. I book it in my schedule when I'm going to call my mom. I make sure that I call my brother a couple times a week. That's in my schedule too, and he knows when I'm going to call, right? Or at least I try to make sure that he knows when I'm going to call, but he's got a life of his own. So, like all of these things segment down, and when you have that built out list, you realize you have very little time to say yes.
No, 100%. And actually, a question that I had for you, and I'd be interested to kind of talk a little bit more on this. Do you periodize your priorities on the year? Like, do they ever change, or they always are constant in that order?
Um, I reevaluate them probably every quarter,
Okay.
but the top 5 being what they are, I don't see an instance where like I'll never compromise myself or my wife or my training or my family for my business. So it's pretty much set in fifth.
Yeah.
Um, I'll never put anything above myself. So that's pretty much set. Live is pretty much set. So the two that flip flop is basically like family and training. And the way that flip flops is like if I go home, like if we travel home and visit, obviously I'm not going to be like, all right, mom, I know you like made family dinner. I'm just going to go to the
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to happen. So when we went home for the holidays, I missed a couple training sessions or actually I'm really fortunate. My mom has a Peloton and a treadmill in the basement. So I just got in some runs and some cardio there. But that sort of stuff, those top 5 pretty much remain static for me. It's the stuff underneath. It's so
Mhm.
like within the business that will change. So like at some points I'm pushing more client acquisition. On some points I'm pushing more infrastructure backend stuff. Like right now is a big infrastructure backend time for me because I'm relaunching Coach's Corner U. So I've got a bunch of videos I need to film, a couple landing pages and lead magnets I need to make and things like that. So hey, great. I'm leveraging AI for a lot of that to make it easier, but still needs to get done. So that's taking precedent over client acquisition. So I'm not really focused on getting any new clients right now. But once that stuff's in place, cool, I can bump client acquisition up the priorities list, ramp up content generation, do all that other stuff. So on the business side of things, I periodize quite a bit. Within the year, there are times where like Liv and I will go on vacation. We love to travel, so we'll travel. Obviously, business will be a distant fifth in that one. I'm still working while we're away, but it's a distant fifth.
Mhm.
Um, and then training and nutrition's pretty static across the year. I might train a little bit more, but depending on my goals, or a little bit less depending on my goals. Like at the beginning of the year, I was training like 16 times a week, and that was I could do it for a certain point, but
Right.
it was a big drain on my time. Um, Understandably so. But yeah, so periodizing in terms of I plan my year ahead of time or at least a couple months ahead of time so I know what to look forward to, but that's mostly around travel and business.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that was a great answer. I guess from hearing your answer and then rethinking about the question I asked, what I think I started to do or I'm doing more is evaluating the subcategories in each of the priorities.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like for myself, maybe it's I am like I need to do more journaling, this month, and that's going to be more of a priority in the self category. Or kind of like when it is with training, obviously that's going to ebb and flow
Yep.
with the priority or the subcategory of like how much, what are my goals. Like I was joking with Jordan, and she's like, how's your workout? And since the Arnold, I've just been in this fun like experimentation phase where I'm trying new exercises. I'm
Fucking Y raises with cinder blocks.
yeah, yeah, but it's like, so is it as optimally fit, as what I was doing prior for the last like 3 months? Probably not. But my goals right now are just to look the part, develop certain attributes, be a dad. So it's like I'm not putting so much pressure on myself in that
Mhm.
regard. But like another one was, I mean, we talked about like I was going through a good stint of like burnout,
Mhm.
and I was like reflecting on that. And what I tend to do is become more of like a hermit.
Mm.
And I'll put that into my family or my work. And it's not that that's wrong, but what I need to do, I think, and this is why I actually like or I love what we do with this is like we have scheduled time on Tuesday
Mhm.
where I'm talking to a friend,
Yep.
right? And I would say outside of this, there's definitely other areas that I need to make more of a priority when it comes to like certain relationships or friendships. And it doesn't have to be like in my mind, sometimes it was, oh, I need to do like a whole day thing or like a weekend, whatever, where it's like maybe it just needs to be 30 minutes or an hour, of hey, stop by the house or let's go just grab a meal or let's go walk at the park or something.
It could just be a text message.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. So it's like I guess sometimes too, like we can take away is our brains can easily make it bigger than it needs to be,
Totally.
right? And then if we feel like if we can't do that, then it's like, oh, we screwed up, or once again, like we failed. And it's like that's not the case. It's just how you can reframe it, and even if it's like you said, a text message or 30 minutes of quality time with one of your friends, those things, even when you don't want to or feel like you need to do them, you have to somehow schedule that
Mhm.
because it's necessary for the big picture and once again that number one priority, which is yourself. So that's just kind of like more of a realization I had when I was coming back from the Arnold, because I was like, I got to hang out with you guys, like the energy just recharges, we have so much fun, my brain's going. Yes, it was crazy amount of work, there's a lot going on, but equally like that filled my cup to a degree, much like when you go to the seminar in Vegas. Like, dude,
Yep.
from just hearing about it, like those are ball busting days. But every time I know, at least I know you're the same way. Like when we come home or you're on the flight or the drive back, you're like, oh my gosh, like I have this new like energy, or I
Mhm.
just feel so much recharged in a certain degree. So just once again, anybody listening to this, like for me, what helps is having those top five priorities and then building out those subcategories
Mhm.
and kind of realizing like where's the bottleneck at a certain point, which would be more the periodization of okay, for this month, I know I got to increase this subcategory of this priority, and that'll just change over time. But once again, that's going to take reflection, some self awareness, which we always talk about, is huge. But I do think it's going to be very beneficial, if you at least have something planned or structured or organized versus not.
Yeah. So what would be your advice? I mean, you and I had a great conversation about this in DC of like, hey, I'm going through the shit right now. I have flexed on my priorities. I need to get back into alignment. What's the process for you? You've recognized the misalignment. You're in the shit. How do you get out of the shit?
Well, I think first off is recognizing that you're in the shit. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that just keep going and going. And from an outsider perspective, like you can see it, but they're either in denial or they just don't want to, you know, like assess themselves, I guess.
Mhm.
So that's the first one. Second one for me specifically was I knew that I had to be in the trenches for a period of time. I knew it was going to suck. It's going to be a lot of ball busting work, but equally, I know the end result is going to put me in a such better place, like with my business, with my family. So that for me is like having some sort of light at the end of the tunnel and like almost like a deadline,
Mhm.
that you're working towards. Because if you don't have either a deadline or a light at the end of the tunnel, you're just going to keep going and probably make it worse. So
Yeah.
I think that's honestly like I don't mean to make it super simple, but it's just assessing the problem or where you're at, coming up with some sort of structure and solution. I said this to one of my athletes on the cross last night. You know, uh, he was kind of starting to beat himself up about certain things. It was our goalie, and I said, brother, I was like, the best thing you could do is just assess the problem. And then now that we know the problem, we can figure out solutions.
Yeah.
So it's like once you know the problem, okay, well, that takes away, the stress. It's like, here we go. What can we do about it? X, Y, and Z. Cool. Like, let's take action, right? Because I think you've said it, but anxiety comes from just not taking action,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it was, here's I would say also on top of that, identifying the priorities within
Mhm.
that problem. Like, don't make it bigger than it needs to be because then you're just going to take on more. So it's like, okay, what are the biggest things that I need to attack that are going to have the best ROI and outcome for the future? And almost like forget about the rest or don't think about the rest. Right.
Yeah.
So doing that gives me focus, gives me purpose and direction, which is huge. Which I think when you have purpose and direction, that's what gives you motivation, right?
100%.
And then the discipline comes because when the motivation fades, you'll just keep you're a robot. You keep doing what you know you got to do, and then naturally you're going to get a hit of dopamine or motivation throughout that process again at some point, and then eventually, those small actions will compound. You get to that point, and then you're finally either at your deadline or where you want it to be, and hopefully that's in a much better place.
Yeah, I totally echo that because for me, it comes down once I've recognized that I'm in the shit and I'm like, okay, I'm misaligned. My mind immediately goes to what are the things that need to get done by a specific date? So even just using my current situation. So I've traveled, this will be my third trip within the month of March. I have to tidy up my Canadian taxes prior to filing my US taxes. So that there is a deadline for that, a hard deadline. I had to prepare a talk in Arizona this weekend. And then I'm home for the majority of April. I only have one trip and it's at the end of the month. So I say, okay, I have all of this on my plate. Oh, and I also took on planning a seminar at the end of May in Toronto. So I have all of this on my plate. I say, okay, I send a message to my collaborator on the May seminar and I say, hey, we're going to pick this up April 15th. I'm not going to touch it until then. Cool. One thing down. Next thing is the talk this weekend. I have to nail it. It's my first paid speaking engagement. I'm going to pour everything I can into that. Cool. What did I do on the tax side? Taxes, there is a deadline. Number one, I had to accept that I'm going to have to pay a penalty because there's no way that I can do it on time and still show up the way that I want to. Cool. Accept that I'm going to pay the penalty. Number two is, how can I set myself up for success? Awesome. I downloaded all the documents I needed to download. I organized them all. I have the spreadsheets created from last year to this year. That's all organized. So as soon as I'm ready to attack that, it is staged. Now I crush the presentation. I focus exclusively on the presentation. My slide deck's incredible. I have a phenomenal lead magnet. There's QR codes in the presentation. I nailed my outline. I'm ready to go. I've been practicing. Soon as this Saturday is done, guess what's getting picked up? Taxes. Soon as taxes get picked off, we're back into planning. So once you have you've recognized it, for me, it's about organization. And then again, as you said, setting the priorities within the things that I have to get done, knowing where the light at the end of the tunnel is. And because we're in a great situation personally, guess what the first thing I'm doing as soon as all this shit's off my plate? We're going on vacation.
Yeah.
I'm just getting the fuck
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
and disconnecting.
I was literally going to say, like, once that's done, that's the green light of, all right, I need a recharge period,
Yeah.
because how much work's going to be required to get there. And it's kind of similar to, like, in my situation, like we were just talking about a vacation, and I'm trying to plan, like, if I work my freaking nuts off, for
Mhm.
these 3 months or whatever it is, and I get there, like, we equally need to reward ourselves.
Yeah.
like if you're not rewarding yourselves, or you're also not recognizing like your wins or your effort, like why are you doing this? Like anybody who works a job, and it doesn't have to be for yourself, but it's like your incentive is to do the best job that you can, right? Because either there's going to be potential for a bonus or some sort of enticing reward at the end of the tunnel.
Has
Is
to
it?
be.
Yeah, it has to be. Because if not, dude, that's what you just call the grind 24/7. And the grind 24/7 is going to beat you to the ground. And you are not going to have any of these priorities in check. And you're just going to be a disaster and a shit show. So it's like you need to somehow schedule that in or create something for yourself to give you that. And then that will recharge you. Like when you go on vacation, you're probably the same way, dude. Like you're there, you totally enjoy it, but by the time the vacation's done, if it's done correctly, you're like ready to get back into the
Yep.
thick of it. It's just like training, right? You have to overreach for a certain period, which sucks, but you have to get that adaptation. And then once you've you're deloaded, or you're sitting there like twiddling your thumbs, you're like, all right, I really need to get
Mhm.
back in the gym. So it's the same thing with work, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, people in that grind culture, uh, the best way that I've heard it put is, the marshmallow test. It's like you have one marshmallow now, or you can have 10 marshmallows in a week. Which one are you choosing? Well, what most people in that hustle culture will do is they'll just put off those 10 marshmallows forever. They'll just delay that gratification forever. But delayed gratification in the extreme is no gratification. And your reward doesn't have to be a vacation. It doesn't have to be something tangible. It could literally just be you sleeping in one day.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is that's going to fill that cup back up, because I know that we are very similar. I don't care about hard work. Like if you told me, "Hey, you got to work your nails to the bone for the next X number of weeks, go do it." Like, okay. But I have to know that at the end of that, I do get some sort of reprieve. Travel just so happens to be one of my favorite things. So that's the reward that I've chosen, is we're going to plan a trip and we're going to have that at the end of the tunnel. That could be a dinner with your wife. That could be a play date with your son. That could be, and one of the other things that I've thought about over the years is, why do I have to wait for an indistinct amount of time? Like, okay, in 3 months, I'm going to go do this. Well, what if I had a small recharge every single day? And ultimately, that's the goal that I usually set for myself, is like at 8:30 every night, I sit on the couch, or I crawl in bed with my wife and we watch TV. Like
Mhm.
that's my recharge. And if I never had that, and like in my life, I never had that until I decided that I needed it. And all of a sudden, I saw so many positive dividends paid in my ability to work extra hard because I knew this thing was something that I had to look forward to. It's the same theory I apply to, like, okay, if I ever feel overwhelmed at my desk about the amount of work that I have to do, the first thing I do is I get up from my desk and I go for a walk.
100%. Yeah.
It's like, because sitting at your desk is not going to solve your problem. You need to get out, you need to disconnect, refocus, and then come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. Like, what are some of the things that you do from a, like, okay, so you're going through the next 3 months. What's the reward for you at the end of that?
At the end of 3 months,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, dude, I get pumped because I just know how tidied up my business will be on the back end, which
Yeah,
is
true.
huge. So like that's the biggest one for me is I have, and not that many people know about this, but like I have all the right assets when it comes to content, when it comes
Yeah,
to
yeah.
email lists, when it comes to the connections I've made with people. I'm just not leveraging that anywhere near it should be. And I use just like a very blanket statement where, say I'm making, $5 a year, right? But I have the potential to be, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm trying to keep it kind of dumb
cost
here.
cost of living in PA
Yeah,
is real low.
yeah, yeah. So say I'm making $5 a year. Well, I know everything that I have going on, I should be making $20 a year, right?
Right.
But I should also be making $20 a year, and the process should be a lot more simplified than it is right now.
Mhm.
And those things that are preventing me from making that $20 a year is draining me so much, and taking away from my priorities, or especially like number one, myself, and that just affects everything. So I know when if I bust my ass and get there, honestly, my life is going to change in such a great way. So
Mhm.
that pumps me up. But to your point, like back, I mean, obviously this is probably, like when I first started my career, for a long time, I would get up early. I remember I was always running 5 or 6 a.m. workouts at this time, but I would probably be going to bed between like 1 and 2 a.m. And
Holy shit.
but I loved it though, because I was young, I was full of piss and vinegar. So I'm like researching, I'm excited. I have no other real responsibilities. I'm not in any relationships. And then I remember probably like, I want to say at the end of my 20s, definitely, I just hit a wall. And I just remember I was like, there's no way I can continue to do this. And I was kind of getting mad at myself and like, why can't you used to do this all the time? Like, you should
Yep.
be able to perform this way. And I beat myself up. But now, just like you, like when it comes to my workload or things that I know I need to get done, like when I get home, 8:30, 9 o'clock, that's me sending the message or the text out. Like, I'll get that to you tomorrow. I'll take that L, right? And that recharge for me is spending time. Well, first off, if I can, I always want to make sure that I can put my son down with my wife to sleep, or at least say
Mhm.
goodnight. After that, we hop in bed and we watch trash TV. Like the dumbest stuff you could possibly ever imagine, we watch because it makes me laugh. It's funny. I get to talk to my wife about it. We get quality time, and that's those that like hour and a half. It means so much to me. But even like today, right? You know, uh, have basically the morning kind of, which would be like office work or my training time. And then I had about an hour before this podcast. And when I was driving home, I was thinking about, okay, well, if I have an hour, here's the things I can do. Right. Well, then I think about my son's up. So I spent an hour with my son, just being idiots, rolling around on the floor, pushing his little grocery cart around, and that recharges me, right? That's
Yep.
quality time with my son, and then I get to get back to work and do this, and he's going to be down for a nap when this is over, and I know I have like 2 hours that I can just grind away. So for me, it's more so at this point in my life, like knowing my boundaries with my work for sure, which are different than they were in the past, and then also finding those little moments, like I said to Jordan, we every night or the day we're like, okay, what's your schedule like? What's your schedule like? Cool.
Mhm.
We figure out and we're on the same page, where she, may have some free time before I have lacrosse practice. Well, hey, let's go on a 20-minute walk outside. It's supposed to be sunny
Yep.
and gorgeous. I'm going to take that 20-minute walk. Okay. So it's like 20 minutes of work. Yeah, maybe I get something done, but in reality, would I rather spend that 20 minutes with my family that, I don't think it's messed up, but me doing that with my family gives myself, I guess, the green light when I need to work, if
Oh
that
yeah.
makes sense. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
It's credits
Versus,
in the account for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure. Like, so that gives me just like the grace to myself to be like, I don't feel bad that I'm working right now, and I struggle with that a lot,
Mhm.
especially in early phases of being a parent was like, how can I do both? And I realized like that there really is no balance. It's just a teetering back and forth and trying to
Mhm.
manage that as much as you can. But I beat myself up big time. And then I had to come to conclusion like this is what it is. So how can we make the best of the situation so I can still work the way I need to work and give them the time they deserve when they can or I can. And we talked about it before, but just when we're doing that, whether it's 20 minutes or an hour, it's as present as possible. It's not on my
Yeah.
phone. It's me acting like a goofball with my son, totally immersed in his world and his experience. And then when I'm working, cool, green light, back on, flip the switch, dive
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah, I struggled with that early on too, especially early on in my relationship with Liv because I was just a one man show at that point. And I remember having that conversation with her about like, and there was a number of conversations actually where I actually looked over her and I was like, hey, I'm here, but I'm not here. And that broke my heart, honestly, because I didn't have the ability to be present with her because I was thinking about other stuff. And that's been my number one project of personal development is establishing presence. And so it's funny you mentioned the 20-minute walk because that's literally what I did this morning.
Yeah.
I woke up, I read my book, I did my cardio, and then I ate my breakfast, and then I was going to work for about 30 minutes before I had a friend of mine come over and help me put together the treadmill that I just bought. And I was like, she started getting ready to go for a walk with the dogs. And I was like, hey, would you like some company? And she said, sure. And I could have been thinking about, hey, I've got all these check-ins to do, and if I don't do a couple of them now, it'll just pile up at the end of the night or whatever. And that's where my mind would have gone. But I left the phone at home. I grabbed beefcake, went a 3 dog walk together for 20 minutes around the block, came back in, installed the treadmill, whatever went on with the day. I'm not going to miss that 30 minutes. And to be honest, even if that 30 minutes gets tacked on to the end of the night, so be it. But realistically speaking, it's not because I'm going to be so fired up that I got that 20 minutes in the morning that my workflow the rest of the day is going to be so much more smooth and I'll get it done.
Yeah.
Like that. I love that because dude, I don't want to delay eating the marshmallow for the rest of my life.
No, you can't. I mean, what's the point, dude? Like,
Dude,
honestly,
I don't want 10 marshmallows in a week. I want one marshmallow a day.
and that's doable,
Yeah, totally.
and I think that was the big thing with like, being a parent or even just having a significant other is the sooner you can learn that or you can find whether it's the 5-minute walk, 20-minute walk, or whatever it is for you that makes sense. You realize that the 5 minutes you put into that gives you almost like 10 times
Oh yeah,
that back into what you think you're losing out on. You know what I mean?
absolutely. You mentioned something that I think is worth diving into is you are beating yourself up for having these feelings, and I used to do that. I call them meta emotions. So like emotions about your emotions.
Yeah,
So I would like I've I'd be feeling burnt out and I would acknowledge it. And then I would make myself feel like a pussy for being burnt out. And when I stopped doing that and learned how to actually, give myself some grace and realize that I'm human, dude, the amount of stress that got lifted from my shoulders was just incredible. It's like my shoulders like dropped a couple inches.
I believe it, dude.
You know, to have this idea that you need to be some superhuman workhorse, and I think that comes a lot from comparison, right? We see people online being like hustle and grind, and that's all well and good, but I don't know if you've noticed, but even Mr. Hustle and Grind Hormozy himself is now talking more about self-care, is now talking more about, putting his relationship first, all these things. Like, you can do it for so long until you can't.
Yeah, like what's the cost, right? Like there's
A great
always going to
point.
be a cost for sure. In any way you look at it, when you're doing something, something else is taking a hit somewhere, someplace. Like that's just I feel like a natural law, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I do have to give credit to my wife because I think people on the outside notice it sooner and they're way more transparent about it than you will ever be. Like she can see me going through it and I'm having this self-talk internally, but my actions will just be like, pushing on the gas pedal more and more. And the people closest to you will tell you the things that are true, whether you like it or not. And she would just be
Mhm.
like, "You're taking on way too much. Like you need to rest." Like, or she'd be like, "It's okay that you chill on the couch." Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And there's been so many times where I like push back on that, but then equally by pushing back, I just dug the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So for me now, and that's like kind of where I've adopted like more of the chill kind of like or just giving yourself grace, where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I could spend the next 30 minutes grinding, or I can put on an episode of the show that we were watching, spend time with her. She's happy, I'm happy, and then when I'm done, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go crank out some work, and she's like, oh, okay, great. Like I don't feel bad about it. She feels great. I feel good. Um, and yeah, so that's definitely been a process for me. Like that's been something I've struggled with for years and years.
Mhm.
And then this is like a super weird thing, but we can talk about it 'cause that's what we do here. Is so like last night we were watching TV. I shut the TV off. Wife's passed out. My brain just started going about the current state of the world, right? And this,
Oof.
but this started to be picked up because my wife made a comment about today. She's like, "Well, it's you consume all that." And I said, "Actually, I don't consume it." I said, "This stemmed from conversations that happened at the gym, in the last couple of days. This stemmed from somebody else saying something, and I just kind of let it build in my head, and it became worse and worse. Where I'm like." I now have a wife, I have a son, we're going to have another child coming into this world, and I just felt like this huge amount of anxiety and sadness because I was afraid of like the world that I was going to be raising our children in.
Mhm.
And, I think growing up, there were parts in my life, especially where I was like, oh, I'm going to live till I'm, 80 something. Hopefully, I'm going to die surrounded by my family. And it was these thoughts that were creeping up, being like, well, maybe that's not going to happen. Like
Oof.
maybe and it gets pretty vicious, dude. But
Yeah.
once again, I try to reframe it real quickly because the first thing I thought was, how selfish am I? Right? Like I'm thinking about my family, my kids, which there's nothing wrong with that. But then it's like Paul's got Liv. Paul wants a family, right? Like how many friends do I have that already have kids or they have families? Like it's everybody. It affects
Mhm.
everybody. And then I started just kind of reframing to, well, even if that was the case, like I need to live every freaking day like as grateful and as full and present as possible. So it's like I can either sit here and I can get really upset about it. And it's not that it's wrong. Like I definitely was like definitely down about it for some time. But then, it kind of gives me another sense of purpose when I wake up to be like, I'm going to give everything that I'm putting myself into as much as I possibly can because it's not guaranteed. And I know it's cliche. And the reality is, too, it couldn't even be anything with the world. Like I could literally get in my truck and just get nailed by an 18 wheeler going through a red light. Right. So it's
Mhm.
like we can create these scenarios or stories to be much bigger than they actually are. Or even if it is true, what are you going to do about it?
That's where I go. That
Yeah.
immediately, that's where I go. It's like, the state of the world is fucked up, but I can't do anything about it other than live my life.
100%. Yeah.
And I like I say we mostly, well, um Liv and I had a lot of conversations like this around COVID because during that time the political landscape in Canada changed a lot. And we realized that there was so much that was outside of our power to control, but that actually directly impacted our lives. Things like vaccine passports and travel mandates and things like that. But we can't change it. All we can do is focus on how we operate within the system. So, what did we do? Well, we found a way to get vaccine passports and we figured out the travel mandates to navigate them. I remember, I can say this now because there's a statute of limitations, I'm sure. We were supposed to go to Miami to compete at the hybrid showdown, the powerlifting meet, and we had to take PCR tests and we both had sore throats. So we're standing in the parking lot of the pharmacy before we go in to the pharmacy to take the test, fucking putting hand sanitizer all over the inside of our mouths.
Nice. Nice.
It's like, that seems ridiculous, but
Yeah.
all we did was we looked at the situation like, well, what can we control? Well, we control trying to pass this test with sore throats. So we fucking did it.
Yeah.
Extrapolate that out to literally anything, right? So, the order of the world right now, we're going to bring a kid into this world as well. The childhood that I have is not going to be the childhood that I had is not going to be the same one that they have. Well, what can I do? I can be the best version of myself. I can set an example. I can show them what hard work looks like. I can show them what love looks like. If you do those things, like Leighton is never going to grow up with the same childhood you have. And I'm sure that's a main driver for you as a
Yeah, for
father.
sure. For sure.
He's never going to know what it feels like to be absent of love. He's never going to know what it feels like to not have a roof over his head or to not be able to hug his mom or hug his dad. Like, these are things that you are providing for your child that is going to far surpass the influence of whatever the fuck is happening in Iran or Israel or whatever.
Right. Right.
Doesn't that feel a lot less stressful?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think for me, it's like I definitely still can go through those thought processes,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for me, it's like being able to quickly reframe and adjust. And also at the end of the day, like you just said, like so much of that's out of my control. And if it's out of my control, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to worry about what I can control.
Yeah.
And for the most part, that's very easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's easy for me to do, I feel good about it. Um, but yeah, and that all just ties back to the priorities as well, right?
Yeah.
Like I just have to sit there and assess my thoughts and then look at my priority list. And just by doing that, I can immediately separate what matters, what doesn't matter, what am I in control of, what am I not in control of. And then I can go about my day and I have a plan and I have purpose and I have drive. And if you have a plan, you have purpose and you have drive, like the world is your oyster and you can live a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
And that's just where I feel like this podcast is great because if you're listening to it, like these little things are life changing,
Yeah.
like absolutely, like 100%. But yeah, man, no, I definitely woke up today with even more gratitude. And once again, I just sit there and I go, how selfish am I? Like and I said to Jordan, I said, how crazy is it that we were born where we were born and the time we were born? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many other people that didn't have the opportunity that we have. Like we need to be grateful for that. And I think even people on the flip side who maybe live in a third world country, like they're just so grateful every day just to wake up, and it's like things like that we should be grateful for, but we forget because we're caught up in other things. And, we just can't, we're not, it's not ingrained in us to think that way. So it's like
Yeah.
just by kind of being able to have that gratitude, yeah, it's just like a game changer. Like every moment of every day, it's just like, damn, what an opportunity, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, my dad reminds me of that a lot because he grew up in a third world country, then came to Canada, and so I've had that kind of in the back of my head for my whole life. But realistically, if you wake up and you're grateful and you have purpose and you're acting in alignment with those priorities every day, you're gonna have a really good life.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah. And I know I've said it before, but I had a conversation with one of my childhood best friends the other day. And I basically it came down to he was going through a lot of stuff and I resonated a lot with it. And I just said, if the world just had more self-awareness, I think it would be such a different place. Just being able to reflect and have ways to improve upon yourself and take yourself out of it for a second. Well, first reflect on yourself, but then also be able to see either other sides or put your emotions and thoughts on hold for a second. I truly believe that globally the world would be different because
Yeah.
we are so consumed with ourselves, or we're so consumed with, I'm not the problem. I don't need to do any work on myself. Other people need to do it, and it's funny too, because like we talk about like our friend circle, like anybody who comes into my circle at this point, I know everybody else in my circle is it's all going to click.
Oh yeah.
That's like almost like just a non-negotiable staple, and I know that right away. Yes, everybody in that circle is slightly different. I love that about them, but equally, like I'm not going to bring you into that unless you kind of fit that mold. And everybody in that circle is about self improvement, is about all the things we talk about on this podcast, which is amazing because
Yeah.
I'm forced to be in that environment and a part of that environment to level up myself and those around me together.
Absolutely.
And everybody has different attributes that all come together to make that puzzle fit perfectly.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. Um, when it comes to the stress piece, there's, maybe finish on a quote. Ready for this one? Everything will work out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out yet, it's not the end.
Not the end. I like that. That's true. I always do say like everything happens exactly as it should.
Yeah. You are where you are for a reason. And
Yep. If you
dude,
can look at it that way, man, like that's it. That's the golden nugget right there.
dude, great pod.
Another banger.
Yeah, guys, if you like the podcast, subscribe to us, share it with your friends. We're growing. I think we're almost at 30 subscribers now.
Let's go.
Yeah. Um, any parting words of wisdom or anything you got? What's anything you want to push or promote, or are we
No,
doing that?
no. I mean, I think
No.
I think we hit the nail on the head, man. Like, just say, get your priorities. If anything, get a list of your priorities 1 through 5. Create some subcategories. That's a big one from this podcast. I would say on top of that, find those little time frames or slots where you can get your marshmallow every day. Like, go get that marshmallow, and just always be on the pursuit of just self-reflection, self-awareness, and bettering yourself. That's what this whole podcast is about. We just say it in different ways, and we talk about different parts of self-improvement, and we are in it with you. Like, we are not
100%.
perfect. We are regular. I always say, like, we are the most regular people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the truth. We're just putting it out there in hopes that it can help anybody listen to this. And at the end of the day, it's just Paul and I having a conversation because we're homies, and that's the
Yep.
best part too.
Love it. Cool, man. We'll catch you next week.
All right, brother.
All
Love you,
right.
dude.
Love you too, man. Bye.
Peace.